Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
Welcome to a Coffee with Karen. This weekly show is a cup of positivity with just a sprinkling of woo-woo. So each week we discuss various topics, and depending on the guest, they will be giving their input from either a mental, a physical, or a spiritual perspective. So my guest today, I'm not sure quite which category to put you in. I know you're a little bit of woo-woo, but I'm sure you're others as well. Probably a little bit of an all-rounder. So my guest today is Kay Hamilton. And Kay, if you could just share with the listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and share a little bit of your story.
Okay, thank you. And I'm very much very grateful and appreciative for this beautiful invitation to spend some time with you, Karen, and share our stories. It's such an important thing to do, that we all pass on our stories to give hope and positivity and encouragement to people who are not happy and they want to step into, a different way of life and to move forward. And yes, to cover your little query, I would say I'm all of those categories that we talked about, because I think we need all of those categories to step into alignment with our full purpose and passion. So I will backtrack. I'll tell you a little bit of the back end of my story and how I got to where I am in the current days. My story of recovery or transformation started when I was about 33. That's about 30. I'm telling secrets now. Started 30 years ago. So I was a mum with three children, three very young children. I was still breastfeeding my youngest. And my husband decided that he no longer wanted to live live with me or the family, so he left. So I was placed in that that situation of feeling totally devastated. My life just turned on a pin, and I realised that I was going to have to support my children all by myself. So of course I took a dive, like we all do when we have these crazy situations come upon us. That was my turning point. That's when I realised that I'd been living, a life where I was just worried about the day-to-day situation, and I just, I always just wanted to be a mum and have kids, and have a garden, and had this ideal idea of what life was going to be like. But of course, that turned on a pin, and the family unit to me is very precious. I was quite devastated. Very worried for my children about what they were going to experience, having lived in having to be brought up in a broken home. And the father didn't really have a lot to do with us after that. Basically, he left and I was left carrying the can or carrying the babies. So that kind of alerted me to the concept that I needed to rely on something more than just another human being. So I guess that I turned inward, and I started exploring spirituality and what that meant for me. I was brought up in a Christian family, but I had questions about what the institution of religion meant, what it stood for, the stories that we were told. So I had a lot of questions about that from childhood. But this became a time for me to really, go within and start looking at myself, not just as a physical being, but as a spiritual being. And one thing led to another. So I went through a journey of, I did Reiki, and years later I became a Reiki master. I went on to do colour therapy. And in 2010, I came across some beautiful essential oils, which I have some of my gorgeous babies behind here. I discovered Young Living essential oils, and I really was thrilled with them because they helped me to raise my vibration. They were the icing on the cake of all the other modalities that I had explored and had brought into my life. But I'll just backtrack a little bit, because what I discovered was, although I'd put myself back to, I was at the beginning of putting myself back together when I stepped into another relationship, and that was actually 8 years of disaster. So I discovered that I went into another relationship when I was very vulnerable, and I went into the story too much, but I was very vulnerable, and I got completely sucked into, something that was not so good for any of us in the family. So basically it was abuse on all levels.
Oh.
So my message to people these days is, please do your putting back together of yourself, in the best way possible before you jump, what's that saying, out of the frying pan into the fire. Because that's definitely what happened to me. And I think in part I realised that my whole time with my marriage was never actually a loving situation. So I think it's important for us all to realise that to be in the right relationship, you need to feel loved, nurtured, protected, supported. You need to feel equally involved. And I think particularly as women, we seem to be very vulnerable, and we seem to be looking for someone who's going to
save us.
save us. Yes. And, the importance is to go through those hard times and come out the other side. And when you do that, then you're going to feel, quite secure within yourself. Yes, it's a journey, but most journeys have their stories behind the scene.
Absolutely. There's no one. Can you even think of anybody that that has had it all plain sailing, has just gone up, up, up in a straight line? That's what life is like, isn't it?
Well, that's right. Yes, I know. I always feel like it is that the highs and the lows, and our destiny really is, or what we need to do is to bring balance into our life. And that's why I think we need all these tools, the woo-woo tools, the physical tools, all those things to bring us into alignment so that we can become empowered once we have integrated all those parts of ourselves. And creating a community around yourself is also something really important. At least these days, you've got things like the internet. We can sit and have talks like this. In my day, 30 years ago, this was not happening. So I think there is a real advantage these days for people to not feel so isolated. I think mums get stuck at home with their young children, and, it's not that easy to get out and about when you want to. So at least I think the World Wide Web offers us the potential for creating community. And now I've got friends all around the world now who I connect with, and it's just absolutely fabulous because women are stepping up, they're stepping out, they're saying enough is enough. And I believe that we need this sisterhood, would you call it? That support from each other. I can remember, in my situation, my husband had, wandered, and fell into lust with somebody else who was down the road and round the corner. And I often wonder why women don't support each other more. Because I think we need to be able to support it. Where's that sense of sisterhood, sticking together? And I know that it all comes from insecurity anyway.
Of course it does. Of course it does. Yeah, but we need it more. We need it more. Us women need to do that. You're right. Support each other. There's too much, some people feel it's, I don't know, it comes from a fear. It's always fear-based, isn't it? Maybe competition rather than collaboration is the way to go, and absolutely, to support each other. So what was the sort of, so back then when you started your journey, What was the sort of main attraction there? So you went towards the Reiki, which, you know, a lot of people would consider maybe more of the woo-woo side of things, more the spiritual side of things. Was that for you to help? Did you start out to help wanting to heal yourself before healing others? Because that seems to be quite a common thread.
I was in a situation where I was still untogether. I was not very strong. I was chasing my tail. I knew that I needed some nurturing. I knew that I needed some tools. And what I love about Reiki is that when you give yourself Reiki energy, or when you give other people Reiki energy, you're actually filling your own cup up first. And that's one of my, strong sense of what we need to do. We need to fill our own cups up first. So the Reiki was
for those people, sorry to interrupt you, but for those people out there who don't really know anything about Reiki, or they may, there's the reason I've, I suppose, done this show is also to try and introduce. I'm saying it's just a sprinkling of woo-woo, because I think some people they've realised that the mind, there is the connection to the body now. I think before they didn't. I really think now it's sort of established, whereas the spiritual side may be for some not quite there yet. So could you describe to the listeners a little bit about what Reiki is and how it works and who it can help?
Okay, so Reiki is, I'm just going to keep it really simple because it is such a beautiful, simple modality to use. But what you're really doing is just channeling, or it's like you have a direct conduit to source. So you're actually getting a direct link of healing energy coming through you. You just become a channel. It's not, the Reiki energy is not well, it's an interesting dynamic. Really, it's coming from the source through the person who is offering the Reiki or giving the Reiki. So and in your body, you might feel a tingling, you might feel relaxation. When I have people on the Reiki table and I'm giving them Reiki, they might fall asleep. You just feel really, really relaxed. So some people experience, their pain goes away. Different people will have a different experience. You might go hot, you might go cold. It's an energetic exchange, and it's really filling your cup with healing energy. So very interesting, but it's empowering. And it's what I love about Reiki is once you become attuned to Reiki, you don't have to go and pay anybody else some money to get that healing. You can actually work on yourself. And then if you want to work on other people, you can. I think a lot of people already have, hang on, I'll backtrack a little bit, to become a Reiki channel. It's like when you listen to the radio and you get that fuzzy or that static, or it's not a clear reception. That's what happens when we're not in alignment. However, when you have a Reiki attunement, it will bring all those into alignment so that you are vibrating, or you become at one with source. So it's always hard, a little bit tricky to explain, but it's tuning up your chakras, which are energy centers in your body. So if I say I fell over and hurt myself or something like that, I could, put my hand on my leg if that's where I've hurt myself, to give myself some Reiki. It's just some healing support. And when you think about, they talked about Jesus being able to heal people with touch. To me, that is the same energy as what we're doing when we have some Reiki. So it is such a beautiful thing. I have 6 grandchildren now, and even actually I did my Reiki when my youngest was very little, and you'd be holding the baby and you'd feel the energy in your hands. I would feel heat in my hands, and the baby would, just fall asleep in your hands. It just gave you words are always tricky to explain, but it just gave you an extra dimension of
Right.
support.
Awesome. And
Actually,
it's available to everybody, isn't it? Right.
absolutely.
It,
It's yes,
it's
yes,
something that's available to everybody. It's just that some people aren't aware of how to connect.
yes.
So what a fantastic thing to start out in. Obviously to help yourself initially, but having that knowledge and having that connection, you could then go on to help others.
Mm.
So what was the next step on your journey, Kay?
So the next step on my journey, well, throughout the next, like there was 8 years of abuse. And then I had to really learn how to I had to learn to step into my own personal power, to disconnect from from that situation. I had to,
Because it's not easy, right? Sometimes some people find themselves in a position where they're not happy, it's not right for them, but it still takes a lot of effort and a lot of bravery, a lot of courage to actually then make that break. Would you agree?
yeah, exactly. So I guess that's one of the impetuses of why I call myself the courage activator, because I think change doesn't just happen. Change happens when we, have the intention for change, and we need courage. I needed courage. I had by then I had another child, so I had 4 young children, and I was asking the person to leave my home, and that didn't happen anyway. There was a whole story around that, but I had to fully embody my personal power, and that was part of what the story was about. And I also realised that there was a lot of fear in my head that I thought may happen that didn't occur. So when you step into your power, things will come into alignment. The universe supports you. And I think the lesson is that if we're struggling, if we are in a domestic violence situation, or if we are struggling in any way, you definitely have to reach out. We can't necessarily do everything on our own. And I discovered that I've had a program that I can do things on my own. I'm fairly capable. I'm fit. I'm healthy, and I've had a lot of things going for me. But we can't always do a journey by ourselves. So that's why I bring tools in. So what else happened to me? Then I started doing training in a healing technique using aurosoma, and they're little coloured bottles. They're coloured bottles with the energies of crystals and herbs in them. And so they were another vibrational tool. And I was using aurosoma. I discovered that I had a great ability to do readings for people. You would encourage people to pull out 4 bottles, and I would offer readings for people. And it was quite amazing because there was a bit of a story in what bottles they were drawn to. Then, I don't know, I did a few bits and pieces. I did some Touch for Health, which is kinesiology. So I learned about that. I did quite a few different self-development courses, day courses, meditation, lots of different things like that. However, the biggest turning point for me was in 2020, and I came across my beautiful Young Living oils. I've had an email come through from a company called The Lost Seeds, who had non-hybrid seeds. I'm a gardener. I've grown vegetables and herbs for many years, most of my life, and I wanted to order some seeds, and they had an article in their newsletter about these beautiful oils. Now, that was really interesting for me. I had been given what I call divine nudges. I wanted to find something that I could wear on my body that was non-toxic, that was not going to affect my body in a harmful way. I'm very aware of chemicals around the home that we use in our shampoos, conditioners, cleaning products, sprays they put on our fruit and vegetables. Or very aware of the importance of going organic and living a natural lifestyle. So I researched Young Living, and it ticked all these boxes. They're sustainable. They use organic practices. The vibrations of the oils are very high, and they're a very pure, clean product. So I'd been getting these divine nudges. I wanted to wear something on my body that made me feel nurtured, that made me feel full. I wanted to smell lush and but I had no idea what that was going to be, because I had never found anything that ticked all those other boxes of purity and looking after my body. So I decided to buy a kit of oils, and I thought, oh, well, these people, they seem very genuine. And I hadn't even smelt the oils. I bought a kit over the internet. And when I opened up my kit of 10 oils, I smelt them, and I instantly knew that there was something special about these oils. They were nothing like I'd bought in shops or anywhere else before. So that then led me on a journey of discovering what's happening in the essential oil industry, which is what's happening in a lot of industries in the world. And they're not necessarily in those bottles. It might have 100% pure on the label. However, the label does not tell the full story, because regulatory bodies tell us that different countries will have a different quantity. But in actual fact, you only have to put a little bit of pure oil in the bottle, and they can still label it as a pure oil.
Ugh.
So we are being duped. So I just followed my passion, and that's what I think everyone has to do. You've got to follow those nudges. And what I then started wanting to do was share them with other people, because I'm, in my purpose, my soul's purpose, I not only want to support myself in life, I have a purpose of being the healer, or somebody, the humanitarian person who, I'd like to leave here with, oh, wow, a bit of a legacy. What have I done to make a change in the lives of not only myself, my family, but other people?
Brilliant.
So then I started sharing my oils and with other people, and they started loving them, and people started having results like, oh, I put this oil on my skin and guess what happened, or lots of other results. People started feeling the joy. They started feeling changes within themselves. So that then led me to the journey of looking into oils further and coming across the fabulous emotional aspects that we can support ourselves with the oils. And in fact, when after my separation and after the 8 years of abuse, I had to go through court cases and things like that. So I would then use oils to uplift me and to carry me through that journey. So without the oils, I don't know how I would have managed. They were, for example, there's a beautiful oil called Valor, and that one, when you put it on, it is the oil for courage. It helps you to feel calm and yet strong, and it helps you to detach from all those emotional hooks that can traumatize you. And, when we are emotionally debilitated, we become stuck. We can't move into our full potential. So we need, I like to use affirmations. We know now that what we think creates where we're going. And I know with a lot of your work, Karen, you do mindset, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. No, all for it. I mean, everything that you're just telling me there it's quite interesting to see that from where you started and your journey, everything is linked to vibration, which is, and that's what we are energy. It all comes down to everything in this universe vibrates, and different frequencies are going to affect you. And what you've just said there, when you're feeling, when you are in a lower vibration, you cannot see the way out, or the options that are open to you, or the door that is open to you, because your vibration is low. So everything you've done, starting from the Reiki, I mean, you spoke about, intuition, the more in alignment, the more you're going to hear those nudges, right? Whereas some people might just, if they're not in alignment, they're just not going to hear them.
Absolutely. That's so correct. I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people who come to me asking for answers. So people will say, because one of the things I do now is I go live on a platform on Facebook called Spiritual Events Directory, and I bring my modalities together, my colour, my oils, and I do readings for people. So I will intuitively pull an oil out for people online, and often they will ask me about, is a partner coming, or they'll ask me for certain things around their job or whatever. However, I'm not that kind of reader. What I prefer to do is empower people to listen to their own internal messages and to become empowered, so that I'm not a reader saying, yes, you're going to meet, Mr. Right, in September. I know so many people that go to readers, and look, some readers will, their readings will be really accurate, but they're not all accurate. So you can't just imagine that I've been to a reader, oh yes, and Mr. Wright's not coming until September this year, so what am I going to do with myself till then? Well, the reader has said that, I'd be saying, well, that may or may not happen, but no matter what happens, we need to be empowered from within. So I would rather talk to people about, how much do you love yourself? Have you looked at your old programs? What is going on for you internally? Are you fully empowered? Because you need to be fully empowered to meet the person that is going to be your equal match. Otherwise, if you're not empowered and you're coming from a place of lack, you're coming from a place of desperation. Whereas You're better off to be coming from a place of, I'm okay. And I think we place, not to underestimate relationships, because a good relationship will provide balance between both of you. But if you're out of balance, and out of lack, you're putting so much energy into other people propping you up or keeping you going. Whereas, life is precious and we never know what's going to happen tomorrow. You could lose your partner in more than one way. And in a way, we have to be prepared for that. So what we really need to do is have a direct connection with Source first. That's my way of looking at things. And then everything else comes under that. And if you've got a partner with that attitude, well, a lot of things that might potentially grate on you or give you a hard time, a lot of those things just go by the wayside because you have a different perspective about how you're going to approach it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The number one relationship that we all need to focus on first is the relationship with ourselves, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that all comes from being in alignment, and everything you do. It's really quite interesting, even the colors, because even that's frequency. So then you've got the oils, and that's love the idea that can actually have a change on a person's vibration to lift them in a certain way. So so how many, because I don't know, my limited knowledge of aromatherapy oils, I'd think of the normal tea tree oil and lavender and how many different ones are there for starters?
Well, thousands. And I'm sure it's a world that's, to some degree, it's been a little bit uncharted. I'm going to tell you a little story about Gary Young from Young Living, because that is an integral part of what I do and why I do it. The back end of his story is that he was paraplegic. He had a logging accident. He was paraplegic and he was told that he would never walk again. So the interesting thing was he went on a fast. Yeah. He'd been in a coma for quite a while, and he went on a fast. And he noticed one day, was sitting in the hospital bed, and he noticed that his toes were moving. So he started, he realised there was a little bit of hope. And then, long story, he went over many years doing what he needed to do, and he did put himself back together again, and he learnt to walk. Now, during that time, he came across essential oils for emotional support, and that took him down a whole journey of learning around that. And when he put himself back together again, he went traveling around the world, and he lived in communities and researched what herbs they were using and what they did to, what they were using when they were the healers in the village, what herbs they used, and what foods they ate, things like that. So he went on this whole journey around health and well-being. So he then he studied naturopathy, and he studied health and all sorts of things. But because he studied some of these herbs they used, he went on to learn about plants in the forest, and he would go around and smell them, and he did a lot of research, and he actually managed to bring some oils out into the world that no one else had done. So he also knew that there's so many more plants that haven't been used.
Right.
So I would say there's almost an endless supply that we can turn into an essential oil, because a lot of it hasn't been researched. Now, I was like you. I just used to use, we had two standard, I used to use wintergreen oil, and when our backs, or if I'd been in the garden, if we'd, overstretched our muscles or something, and we came in and went, what can we do? So you'd put some wintergreen oil, give yourself some Reiki or something like that, or eucalyptus oil. You'd use that for
cleaning, love that one.
Things like that. So we just had the old standbys, or a lot of people know lavender is a great oil because that's called the Swiss Army knife of oils, and you can use that for absolutely everything. So I had limited knowledge about 3 oils that I would use in my house. So now you can see, and you can see I've got some of my display. But in answer to your question, which was a long way around it, we have over 200 oils with Young Living. And one of the there's lots of really special things about Young Living, but Gary Young was a master at blending oils. He became the world leader in putting oils together. So he started distilling oils in his own backyard. He went to the lavender area of Provence in France, and he learned from a master distiller there, who were also interested in vibrations and interested in making sure that the essential oils they were using had the top quality in the constituents and the compounds that were actually in the oils. So what I mean by that is the goodies in the oils that make them, that give us their therapeutic value, that value of, yes, it's going to work. Because if you get an oil that's not distilled properly, you won't get all the constituents, or I'm going to use another word because you're familiar with the word vibrations. If an oil is distilled properly, it has different notes or different frequencies. Now, if you think of an orchestra that has all the instruments that come together that create the full sound, that is what essential oil is like when it's distilled properly.
Right.
Now, it's got to be distilled for a certain length of time. Gary did a lot of research on how long oils need to be distilled so that you are getting all those frequencies and vibrations in the actual oil itself. So that's important, because an oil like wintergreen is high in methyl, and if you don't have all the compounds that come in right at the end of the distillation process, it can make that wintergreen oil can be quite strong, and it can be quite harmful. So it's it's an art and an education. So I love learning. So I've had the privilege to learn from Gary and read lots of books, about the chemistry of oils and come to understand the importance that the quality of oil that you're using, if you want to be in harmony with your body so that you get the best value from it, you've really got to reach for a therapeutic grade oil.
Right. So it's not just, like, for instance, my only sort of use, I suppose, for aromatherapy oils at the moment I have a diffuser. So like you were just saying about, not wanting chemicals in your house. We all know that, at the end of the day, it's not one chemical that's going to do harm, but because we've got so much going on, whether it's your chemical cleaners or the air freshener that you plug in. So my little thing is just choosing a nice smelling oil. But what you're telling me is really, it's so much more than that, and they actually have specific therapeutic benefits, right?
Absolutely, yes. So what's happening these days is when babies are born, they know in the cord blood of babies that babies are exposed to over 200 chemicals for a start. So just being in the womb from what's coming in from the mother and the environment that you're living in. So you've named a few chemicals, and there's things like, what's on the vinyl, what's in our plastics. There's all those the xenoestrogens that are coming into our body that then put our body out of whack. And what happens is with those chemicals, they affect the receptors on our cells. So the receptors on our cells get clouded. And back to that conversation we had about Reiki and about being out of vibration. So you're not going to get, it's like your mobile phone that can't get reception. When the receptors on our cells are clogged and cloudy, they can't talk to each other. So then our bodies start going out of harmony, and then what happens is some of that and some trauma thrown in and lack of nutrition thrown in to boot. It's back to that holistic thing, and we are seeing more and more people who are experiencing illness at an early age. I go out and about to expos and I do workshops, and the number of women who are having fertility issues or chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, osteoarthritis. The list
is endless, isn't it? And autoimmune on the rise, and it's just simply a body that is not at ease. There you go. It is. I love it, and it's so. I love talking to wonderful people like you from completely different industries, but every single one of you is saying exactly the same thing. It's this combination.
Exactly. So what what a pure essential oil will do, it's like a Pac-Man, and it goes inside your cell walls, and it's like a Pac-Man, and it gobbles up all those things, and that's where the transformation comes from. So it's a holistic thing that we are using to support our body. So when you're even with your diffuser, you're breathing those oils in. So if it's not a pure oil, you're still breathing something in that can be potentially play havoc. So it goes back to that thing of if our receptors aren't communicating with each other, when we can actually be doing our body a little bit of disservice. And that was a big learning curve for me. And so I started sharing the oils with lots of people, and it just organically grew into a business. I'm a school teacher, and I've never really been fully embodied in embracing the whole regime of working 5 days a week and being locked into a system that for me doesn't personally resonate with my truth in what I want to do and where I want to be and how I want to do it. So I was excited about the idea that I could create an income and become independent and have more freedom and have, the ability to change the lives of many. So I've evolved my journey, which started from myself. I did that inner transformation occurred. The oils fully helped me to step into who I am and what I've got to offer for other people. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing out in the world and get to talk and communicate with other like-minded and like-hearted people, which is so important. And I've won 8 trips around the world.
Wow.
With Young Living, which has been absolutely amazing. So I've been to some very big conventions in the USA, in Utah, and I've got to visit our farm there in Utah. So Gary went from distilling oils in his own backyard to wanting to grow herbs in large amounts because he knew the world needed it. Excuse me. And he had this mission to get oils into every home on the planet. And he was one of those people that had a big picture, bigger than most of us dare to dream. He dared to dream, but more than dared to dream, he actually brought it into manifestation. And we're the top essential oil company in the world now, which is something so exciting every time I say that. And we can say that because we have farms all around the world. So he realised that there was not going to be enough supplies for the demand, and he had this ability to know that the future was going to be around what is happening now. People are learning about vibrations. People are waking up to other ways of coping with whatever they were coping with. So we have farms all around the world. So I visited our farm in Mona in Utah, where I've got to plant lavender and sage and jump in the lavender fields and walk around the distillery and learn firsthand all about distilling, which is, people will often say to me, well, do you distill your own oils? And I say, no, it is quite an art. So Young Living do a lot of research. So Gary, they don't just get up and say, oh, the lavender looks nice today. Yes, it's a nice day. It's not raining. Let's harvest. They make sure they do a lot of research about when the prime time for harvesting each oil is. And they do a lot of research with the soil different crops are grown in. So there's extensive, we don't just grow and sell oils. There's a whole lot. Young Living.
There's a lot to it. Well, yeah, and with over 200, yes, that does seem quite. Where do we even start? do they all go in a sort of vibration order? Right, that's that frequency and works up the scale. How does it all work?
It's interesting you say that because Gary, Gary worked. The name's gone from my mind, but he worked with the chap who created the Rife machine, and he tested the frequencies of the oils. So there has been some tests in the past around all that. So we know what some of the frequencies of some of Young Living oils are.
Wow.
And so starting just means, well, you don't actually have to start with any frequency in particular, but there are frequencies for the oils. Most of us start with, Young Living's made it really easy for us because we can get a really great kit which comes with a diffuser and comes with about 12 oils. When I got my kit, I just started with 10 oils, but over the time they've created a really good starter. It's called a starter bundle. A premium starter bundle is the one that I recommend people start with because it has 12 oils in there that are really good for so many uses. Now, in that kit of oils, there's 3 in particular that here in Australia that we can access. And one is lemon oil. Now, there's lemon, orange, and peppermint. They're 3 oils that I will use in my food and drinks. So I know you're into weight and health and management. So putting oils in your drink are a really great way to support you to drink more water because you get a beautiful flavour in the drink. And the oil is a really good way to support your journey. So
right. Well, now that's interesting you say that because I know that there's a lot of aromatherapy oils that there's no way you should be ingesting because they would be poisonous. So that's actually a really important thing to state there that is the quality of your oils you can actually ingest. That's quite rare.
In Australia, we talk about food flavouring, food and drink flavouring. All our supplements have essential oils in them because they discovered that your supplements absorb into your body at 30% higher rate. So that's very important. And the oils also have supportive features. Lemon oil is really good for grief. So on an emotional level, we know, go back to that, talking about when you're not feeling, highly vibrant. Will you make bad decisions, or life is harder to walk those steps. So that's an example of the lemon oil is a really great thing to support grief and opening up to fresh new experiences. It's a good oil for joy. It's uplifting. Peppermint oil is a great one to suppress your need for wanting to eat.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we sort of encourage peppermint tea and things. And I have to say, I love hearing that he fasted.
Yes.
And healed, because that is, my thing. Totally. It just goes to show that's just another bit of evidence right there that the body can heal itself when left to its own devices, and we stop poisoning it and even just giving the digestive system a rest. All of a sudden. And it's funny that you said you talked about Pac-Man, because that's exactly how I describe to my clients when autophagy is triggered, which is triggered when you've gone at least 19 hours without food. It's exactly how I explain it. It's like your cells turn into Pac-Man and go around and clear up things and tidy things up and heals itself. And so I love the idea that that's how he did it initially. Knew that he could heal.
Yes.
And that's from somebody that was a paraplegic. It's just more evidence to me. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you call yourself the Courage Activator. So tell me a little bit about what you do, how you help people from that point of view, or does it incorporate everything that you do?
Yeah. So what I do is I share the oils and the transformational effect of oils. My concept of the Courage Activator is because I know for people, in order to change, it's not going to happen if we have no action. So we've got to step into our courage to take action. So I offer one-on-one courage activating sessions where I will sit with my client, and I also channel some signature artwork. I will bring in my sense and expertise, so to speak, around colour. I listen to people and I help you to hone in on those deep thoughts of whatever it is that's holding you back. And I do an energetic piece of artwork so that throughout that session, while I'm working with my client, and I make essential oil recommendations, and then the client can I take a photo of it, and I also post it to the client so they can use that as a working piece of art to anchor in the changes that they are desiring. So then that is something that they can use to acknowledge, to anchor that in. They can put it up, they can look at it. And I also give you affirmations, and I encourage people to get some essential oils to also really hone in that transformation, so that once again you've got that kit of oils to start using them. And then I can, or whatever oils come out in the reading, and we have beautiful oils. Like one of the most powerful oils for me, well, one was Valor. That's the one that helped me to be emotionally calm and detached from the trauma that was going on around me. And then that was beautiful. All my first lot of oils. Joy was another beautiful oil that got me out of that ditch of sadness and helplessness, and joy just brought the joy back into my life. It just, it's interesting what happens with these oils. Here's an example of a lady. There was somebody who got a kit last year, and she said to me, these oils are really amazing. I don't know, since I've started using them, things have changed. She said, the other day I went for a walk and I was just dancing in a paddock.
There you go.
Happens. The change comes, it's very subtle, but it's very powerful, and you'll find yourself reacting or responding very differently without having to do the hard yards. So
they act as triggers. Is that what you're saying?
So the sense of smell is so powerful, and they've actually done some studies or research on the power of smell, and they say, and we know that it's one of the oldest memories that we all have. So smell will trigger a memory, or when you are putting in a new message, or a new program, when you want to change your thought patterns, you can do that a lot more powerfully when you have a smell. So when I talk to people about intentions, so when people come into me for a reading and an hour session, I'll ask you to bring your intention. And I listen very carefully what the intention is. And I also use meditation. So I will ask the client to go into a really quiet space so that they can I'll walk you through a little bit of a meditation, and they will come out with things that you'll say, you'll ask a question and people say, oh, no, I don't know. But then when I get them to really drop in, what will come from within is the answers. So I'm not giving them the answers. I'm facilitating the space for them to come up with their own answers. That's what I would prefer to do, because then they're learning how they can take that and use that in the future themselves.
So it sounds like, again, from what you're saying there, is you're doing the same as what you did right at the beginning, doing Reiki. You're the channeler.
Yes.
So it's all about, from what you're telling me there, you're getting the person into more of a meditative state. So the answers are coming straight from them, deep within them, their subconscious, rather than, we can get in the way of ourselves, can't we? Our conscious mind. Yeah. I don't know. Well, no, you do know.
Yes.
You do know. But again, going back to what we talked about originally, about being in alignment with source, and then it's coming through from us, because we all know what we need to do. We all know what it is we truly want, but we can get, it's our ego that gets in the way, And so when we calm that, and it's just coming from within our real self, as it were. So it sounds like how you're explaining this is what you're doing. You're bringing in all your skill set from a wide range of modalities, but all with the same sort of end goal, as it were, really. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's about right. And different things work for different people. So, I was pretty pleased when I realised that I've just bought a whole lot of things together to make it something that I can work with, and it's such a pleasure, and it's quite easy for me to do. So a lot of people will have sessions with me, and they're so excited because they've been battling something, and it just gives them that something to pivot with, without the hard yards, really. And it can just open up that door of possibility and open up the belief that, they can do things, because all of us have special, I think, gifts or talents or something special about ourselves. And many of us are afraid to speak up or to make those changes.
Yeah.
because they're still in the childhood or from something in the past is still got us locked in to where we've come from. And we all have this, and we all change and evolve throughout our life. I think it's an ongoing process.
Oh, God, dear, absolutely. Sometimes, I mean, there's always something new to learn. I mean, I'm still in the position at the moment. I'm undecided in slightly which way to go. But I love it. You know, if you're stopping learning, if you've stopped learning, you know, at college or at high school, you know, you're not growing. There's
Yes.
just, and then there's different times in our lives. You know, we go through different changes. You know, there's certain things we might not have the time to do when we've got young children, but we want to explore it when they're a little bit older or at different times throughout our journey. So, yeah, that's brilliant. So it's lovely to hear that you really are following your passion. What about the artwork? So where did that come from? Have you always been a creative soul like that, or is that just something that's come up?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've always, when I actually at Teachers College, I did things like spinning and knitting, and one of my subjects was I majored in art and music. So I've always had that right brain creative spark in me. Although, to be honest, in my younger years, I wasn't aware. I didn't think I was a good drawer or painter, or in my younger years, I wasn't like that. Good question. I think I went to a workshop, I think. I can't remember now what brought the art. Well, I guess using Orasoma, that modality.
So that was natural.
I liked colour. Colour spoke to me very much. I went through that time of everything I wore was rainbows and things like that. But I think it just started as a meditative thing for me, really, go into meditation. And then, you know, really what I do is I just pick up pencils. I just pick up a colour that I'm resonating with or that I'm attracted to. And I will start with my colour drawings. And through knowing about the chakras and the colours and things like that, so when I'm listening to people, I pick up on what areas are missing or what areas are glowing, and
Right.
I will. So it's my artwork isn't. It's an energetic. Most of it's just energetic artwork. So it's not necessarily a flower or a house or a bird. It's an energetic drawing. I was just trying to reach into my thing. I've got one in front of me, but it's in a drawer. I can't get to it. But
fantastic. So again, it was more intuitive. It was something that's more intuitive. Yeah.
Yes.
And what about crystals? Do you or is that part of the color thing with the crystals?
Well, crystals are. I actually have these cards that have crystals on them, and I love crystals. I've been attracted to crystals for quite some time now. I can't really put my finger on the pulse. I've got some sitting up here. I just love having them around. Love holding them. I might take them, you know, to bed or whatever, have them in my pocket. I know, you know, when for example, when I go to the dentist, when I used to be in a lot more fear of the dentist than I am now, I'd always have a crystal in my pocket that you could just, when I go to the dentist, I'll hop in the chair and hold my crystal and just go into meditation and relax. So, you know, my Reiki with my crystals, it's all vibration. Everything's vibration.
There you go. It just so is. It's just we've really sort of, I think the way we've, grown up in the systems, as it were, we've really sort of stepped away from that and we're not recognise it, or we're really just a little bit detached. And so I really hope that the listeners today have got a little bit of introduction. And it's not so woo-woo. It really isn't. It's a physical thing. We are energy. Everything is vibrating at different frequencies. And I think everybody can really understand, even if they've never heard of this stuff before, but intuitively, they know that when they're in a lower vibration, that certain things happen. When they're in a higher vibration, other things, different things tend to happen. So I hope that people got a lot from that. That is absolutely wonderful what you do. And it's lovely that you can help people from a holistic approach, which I'm all for. This is why this is. It's not just the mental, it's just not just the physical, and it's not just the spiritual. And it does seem to be that you're really covering all those angles. So thank you very much for your time. If anybody wants to reach out to Kay, for instance, what's your website, Kay?
Well, at the moment, you can find me on Facebook, Kay Hamilton. I have a page on Facebook called Activate Your Courage with Kay Hamilton, and I will give you my link tree because my website at the moment is not functioning, my basic website from me. So best to find me on Facebook or email me at kay@kayhamilton.live. So that's helpful, and I'll give you my link so you can post
the
that.
link. So some will be listening to this on the radio. If you're watching this on YouTube, all your links will be underneath. So thank you very much for your time, Kay, because I know we are completely opposite sides of the planet right now. And so to my listeners, I will be back on Thursday with a keto coffee with Karen. So thank you for your time and see you again.
Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.